So I was flicking through the movies on Now TV just recently, and I came across this, Frankenstein, which stars Danny Huston, Carrie-Anne Moss and Xavier Samuel, also Tony Todd. I gotta say, I wasn't particularly, excited to watch it, to get it on, because there were a ton of other films on there basically that looked like they'd be better. The thing that kind of attracted me to it was the running time. I literally had just less than an hour and a half to kill, and I thought, why not? I'll have a crack. But then as the film came on, I noticed the credit of Bernard Rose as the director. He's the guy who wrote and directed this. Now, horror fans will know this guy predominantly, I think, as the man who wrote and directed the first Candyman film, which I think is actually one of the better kind of supernatural slasher horror films out there. I think it's pretty underrated, a really good, solid film. And I liked what Bernard Rose did with that. He's definitely his own voice, I think. This is a man who has turned down big studio budgets in the past to go his own way with digital. He wants to have complete control of his films. Now, that does mean they often suffer in the budgetary department, but it also means that, like I say, he gets control. That's evident here. He writes and directs this adaptation of Frankenstein, and it's pretty good. It's much better than the ratings I've seen would have you believe. Now, the star rating for this on Now TV was 2 stars, so that was another reason I wasn't overly excited by the prospect of it. And it's not got a particularly good mark on IMDb either. But, like I say, I think there's much to be admired here, and one of the primary things which surprises me is Xavier Samuel. Now, I only know this guy from the third Twilight film, so that's not really anything to shout home about for anyone, really. But he does really well in this. Now, he has a bit of an unenviable task, because he has to play this character essentially as a child, a man-child, and some points in the beginning of the film that may be a bit too creepy, a bit too much for people to grapple with, because he's being mothered by Carrie-Anne Moss, who's basically one of the scientists that brings him into being, and it is a little bit weird. She's feeding him with this baby bottle, but if you can get over the hurdle and accept that actually, this is a child trapped inside this man-made man body, then it becomes much easier to accept. I got on board with it, is what I'm saying, and that's mostly down to Samuel's performance, which I think he does very well with throughout this film. His intelligence throughout the film steadily increases, and the emotional journey he goes on as he constantly sees the innate sin in man is quite an emotional one, I think. If you're a gore hound as well, I think you'll find much to like about this film. I'm not a huge gore hound myself, but there were moments in this where I literally felt physically sick. One moment in particular involving a man's brain protruding out of his head, and just some other stuff that you won't be short on that kind of stuff if that's what you're looking for, put it this way. But I think it's not just that. I think this film does add a lot of character and a lot of heart. Like I say, it doesn't have a particularly large budget, so there's a lot of close-ups, I think, often to hide the fact that they're not in the most glamorous of locations. And some of the performances are a bit over the top, mainly from supporting characters, though, people that don't really make that much of an impact. There's one person in particular, there's a police officer who's a bit of an antagonist. He's probably the weakest point about the film, to be honest. He's set up as this antagonist for the monster, and he's basically just King Douche. He never does anything that isn't douchey, and he pops up at random moments when you just need someone to be there to be a douche. So he could have been better written, better handled, and there's a few other moments that are kind of a bit stupid. Like there's one moment when the monster's he's covered in blood, dry blood all over him, and he goes walking past this police station at a time when 2 coppers are coming out, and I swear one of the coppers looks straight at him and then just kind of shrugs his shoulders and gets in the car. And you're like, okay, I'm not quite sure a policeman would do that, but hey ho. So there's a few things like that are a bit stupid. And when the monster escapes at the beginning, you know, he's still in a kind of childlike mental state, yet somehow he figures out pretty quickly how to get the lift to go up. So they'd have done that scene better if they'd have just used stairs. You know, you can get around that. But yeah, so a lot of stuff like that throughout that you do kind of feel a bit stupid, does let it down a bit. But everything else, I think, given the budget, given the constraints, I think we get good performances. I think we get, on the most part, on the whole, a decent script and really superb direction, I think, from Bernard Rose. Again, you know, I can see why he chooses to maintain control over his movies. So yeah, not a perfect film, but definitely one worth checking out if you're a horror fan. You know, if you're into kind of B-movie horrors, I'd say this is a pretty decent one. I give it a 6 out of 10. I don't do out of 10 scores anymore, so a 3 out of 5. Keep setting into my old ways every now and again, but yeah, I give it a 3 out of 5. It's pretty decent. Check it out. If you have already seen this film, then I'd like to know what you think about it. Is it underrated, or am I just talking rubbish? Please comment below and let me know, and until next time, thanks for watching.